Hi folks, finally the bit you've probably been waiting to get your teeth into, and that's the painting section. And I think a lot of times I get loads of questions and they are all really the same. They say, what colours do I use? Well, there are many colours and there are many reasons why we would use them. So in order to break that down, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start this painting in the sky, and I'm going to give you five colours that I feel will give you nice results, especially in a kind of a sunlit scene, summery sunlit scene like we have in this painting. The first and most important colour is titanium white. We'll be mixing that throughout the whole painting, but especially in the sky. Skies are quite bright, quite light most of the time, unless you live here where we live, where they're quite grey and threatening most of the time. But this is our main colour, titanium white. It has a very high pigment level in it, and it's great for mixing them with other colours. Gives you very bright results. Titanium white. Second colour is the blue of the sky, and you could use cerulean blue, which is another blue, but my favourite is cobalt blue. I would almost call this sky blue. After that, of course, it's not always blue skies, and I find a grey that I can mix in with these other two colours to give me a kind of a range of conditions, cloud colours and all, is Payne's grey. Really good for giving you that sort of realistic, it's about to rain type of cloud that we're very familiar with. Next colour is, sometimes you would have in clouds, is a bit of a yellow tint from the sun, and there's a colour I use for that, yellow ochre. Yellow ochre. And finally, little joker in the pack, a little flesh tint. This is used a lot, sometimes mixed in portraiture, but sometimes clouds, especially in sunlight, look at what our scene is very summery looking, can have just that little tint, that little pinkish tint. And this colour, it took a while to find this one, flesh tint. It's very, very convincing when you mix it with the Payne's grey, cobalt blue, and you can create all sorts of nice effects and colours in the sky with this sort of our painting. Okay folks, so we had a look at the colours that we're using. We're going to use 5 colours for the sky, and I'm going to use a series of flat brushes. There's one filbert there, but these are in the main flat brushes, and they're quite big. This is a 16 by 20 canvas, so we tool up to the scale of the canvas that we're using as well. So in this case, what I'm going to use is these flat brushes like this. There, you can compare them with the size of my fingers. So, okay, probably start off with mapping in something maybe about this size. Now, I may not get this right. I mean, if it suddenly is that this is too big, or this one's too small for what I want to lay in, then basically I'll just change them. I'll just find one that I'll know straight away actually if there's too much, if this brush is too big and it's putting on too much paint at the one time. But when we first start putting down paint, we work broad to narrow. That is the magical formula. You don't start off with detail. Don't try and put details in. Work broadly first and put the detail slowly and blend it in on top. Paint always looks better on paint, and what we do is we put down broad areas of colour first, and then we blend them in. So let's do that. Okay, so there I have first 2 colours on my palette: cobalt blue, titanium white, and I'm going to start a little mix with quite a big brush. Now, the sky, the blue of the sky, is something I tend to put in first, and because of the way it's in the far distance, the sky nearest to us is always tonally darker than the sky that's furthest away from us. So let's see if I start maybe with this tone on the painting. This is the top of our sky. Get plenty of paint on the brush. Keep mixing up a new batch, and I'm putting in about a third of the way down. Now, see the way I went over the tree? Just rub it back a little bit, and I can still see my underpainting, but I've covered the blue in the background. So I'm going to go right across the painting with this mixture, this first mixture of cobalt blue and titanium white. Put plenty of paint on the brush. The thing about oil paint is it has a lovely texture to it. There's no point being shy with it. Don't put it on too thin. Just get it in there. And you notice I do a lot of mixing on the palette, like this. And then mix a little bit, mix the paint into itself. See, I'm right-handed. I naturally tend to stroke kind of diagonally and from right to left. Now, so there's our first bit of blue sky on. Now I'm going to mix in more white into that and get a kind of a lighter shade of that. I'm only using 2 colours at the moment, so you can't go too wrong with this. I'm going to put another third in band that is tonally lighter right across the painting again. See how it gives you that nice sky blue. Actually, if I just use a piece of kitchen roll and expose that tree again. Let's go back to our mix. See there, what I'm going to do now is something that a lot of people don't really know about, and that's called blending, soft, dry blending. I'm going to put in a final line here. Again, the brush is quite loaded, and you see there it's mostly titanium white. And I'm just finishing off down to the horizon, down to the little, where the hedges are. Now if you wanted, you could leave the brush stroke in like that, but I'm only going to use this as a backdrop for clouds. In my original reference here, I don't actually have a very defined sky, so what I'm doing here is I'm kind of getting a bit creative. I just generally doing my own. Now I'm going to get another brush that has no paint on it at all, preferably something like a house brush, and I'm going to blend in the 3 areas just like that. Just wiping off the excess paint, try to keep the brushes as clean as possible without getting too much paint on the dry brush. And then finally just a wee blend down into the lighter colours, like so. And there, I'm kind of happy with that. And we have this faded blended sky. It already gives us a sense of distance. That brush is new, so there's some hair get on. So you say, right, that's grand. If we had a beautiful blue sky every day, that would be great. But we have clouds as well. So I'm going to start putting in clouds. Now, again, it's about scale. There are clouds that are sometimes closer to us, there are clouds which go into the background. If they're further away, they're going to be smaller. Think about that. Think about the scale of the canvas you have here, and don't do one big cloud, because it's going to look as if it's going to look out of proportion. It's not going to look right. So sometimes these clouds are very soft. So I've got the mix of these 2 colours, and what I'm going to do is add in another colour. I'm going to add in a bit of the yellow ochre. Continue on with the same brush. Put a bit of white into the mix. dab in a little yellow ochre, not a lot. Mix the three colours together, like so. Put in plenty of white here, because yellow ochre is a very strong pigment. It tends to dominate if you don't put it back. Now, here we are, we'll touch in a few clouds. And because the blue underneath is wet, and I can blend it into the paint. As you see, it's a subtle effect. But now the light in this painting is coming this direction, okay? It's coming in this direction. So any clouds, in fact the little cottage, the tree, the foliage, anything you do, it's going to be lighter on the left hand side and darker where the light isn't getting to it, where the light isn't hitting it full face on the right hand side of this painting. So I'll just put in and blend in these clouds. And remember what I said about clouds being clouds are actually a gas, so we don't want razor sharp clouds. Might look a bit odd. So I'm just touching in little clouds here in the foreground, blending in, mixing in with the blue in the background, so almost as if my my canvas was a palette. I can mixing on it too. Remember to keep your mix nice and rich over the tree. There we are. Now I'm going to mix in a little bit, another little colour, that flesh tint. It's a pinkish hint to it. Mix it into the mix that I had and work that into the clouds as well. And I think that there's a certain, I don't know, authenticity about the clouds. Once that colour goes in, it just seems to be right. And again, I think it's about the effect of sunlight. Now, to be honest with you, I'm going to do an awful lot more. You know, we could get into darker colours, but I think sometimes you get a nice effect. Just something works, and you're best to leave it. It's a happy accident. So, if the light's coming on this side, there's going to be a little bit more light on where it's catching the clouds just at the top there and here, and perhaps just a little darker. And I'm into the blue here. In fact, I might mix in just a tiny bit of Payne's grey just in behind. Maybe just a little bit more. And on the right hand side of the clouds, just darken them down ever so slightly. Just like that. A little bit more here. You know, they say here, if it's not raining, it's probably going to. So don't be afraid of grey clouds in your paintings. So there we are. That's a sky laid in. I'm quite happy with that. So what we'll do is we'll move in the next stage into what I call the far distance. Here a set of beautiful blue haze hills which will go here and behind the cottage. You can just see, from my reference, you can just see little bits of very distant green fields on the low hills. So that will take in different colours, slightly different colour range. And then we'll move into the midground. So the next stage is the middle distance. So that was our skies, folks. That's our summer sky. So just a little note on, as I change colours here, just a little note on cleaning brushes. I'm going to clean off the sky colours off my main flat brush, and mostly with low odour white spread, which is nice because it doesn't stink out the room. And here we have, I call this my dirty mix. I didn't really use a lot of medium on that when I put that sky in. And you say, well, what's medium? Well, medium is something else we use. It keeps oil paint fluid. It's mostly the linseed oil that makes up the oil in oil paints. And you mix it with a little bit of white spirit, a little bit of that, a little bit of solvent, and then this. Now I'm using liquid, which is for fine detail, but there are many types of medium. Really, if you just go on to the internet and put in medium, you'll suddenly come across all these little oils, and that's what us artists use to keep our colours clean and fluid, and sort of it gives it a sort. I don't use a lot of medium when I'm painting because I like the way that the paint, I like the way it comes out of the tube. I like the texture of oil paint. But the way this is used is you have another little mix. You put in, not too much. It's quite expensive. Squeezy with it. And again, that's almost pure linseed oil. There are many mediums, and it's really down to you to experiment. And a little tiny touch of white spirit. Now, do not use this as your main cleaner. If you want to make your paint just a little bit more fluid, then dip it into that mix. Dip it into your clean mix, your medium. It should not be used for cleaning, otherwise you're going to just soil it with all the different colours. So if you want to clean your brush, just piece of tissue, make sure you get most of the colour off, and the brush can be used again for your next stage, which is the far distance.